That sounds like a kind of a magical place.
It's very, for me at first, it was culturally so different, you know, I think because in our common language, I was much more of a globalist, you know, living in New York, living in LA, working with people from all around the world. And Saskatchewan was actually a place I first heard about from a senior executive many years ago. And he was talking about it kind of, I think, playfully talking about how uninhabitable it was. You know? How cold the winters were, how hot the summers were, this kind of thing. And I was at a conference center, and it was probably 6 years before I met Sherelle. And I remember sitting in the conference center, listening to this guy talk and thinking, I wonder if I could meet my wife in Saskatchewan. And I actually, it was a complete fluky thought. And then I met her, and I was like, where are you from? She goes, I'm from Saskatchewan. I started laughing out loud because I was like, oh, well, you know, yeah. So let me jump into Charley Pride, should I?
Okay, well, let me give you a 5-second countdown, and then I'll do an introduction, and we'll banter for a minute, and then we'll begin.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know, one of the wonderful things about this plague, you know, I love it. I love the quarantine, and I love hanging around here all alone, is that, you know, all I have to do is put on this shirt and I can talk to some old friends. And I met this guy several years ago, and he and his family introduced me to the wonders of desert living on the north side of the 10. Bruce Craven is an artist, a poet, a screenwriter, a novelist. And if you ever want to see a great travelogue of the 134/210 area in the 90s, you should see his movie Fast Sofa. But in addition to being, you know, a globetrotter and a professor with the executive education program at Columbia University, he is a wonderful poet. And he joins us here from his home in Desert Hot Springs, California, Mr. Bruce Craven.
Awesome. Thank you, Marty. That was a great introduction. You know, it is interesting. I sometimes, and I say this in full compliment mode, I sometimes can't tell when you're being facetious or not, which I think is one of the great qualities you have and a sign of your intelligence and wit. So I don't know if you're actually genuinely saying you like the quarantine, but I kind of think you are. I know for me, as someone who travels all the time for my work, and I'm fortunate to be able to travel for my work, to suddenly be at home for 2.5, 3 months now, whatever it is going on, 3 months, it's been like a gift for me. I mean, I've been talking to different writer friends of mine, and it's interesting. All my writer friends are kind of admitting it's not that bad. It's not even that much different from my normal life. You know, I mean, most writers who've put a lot of time in at the craft have spent a lot of time just being in their apartment or their house or their table, which is where I'm sitting right now. And so for me, there's that. And then I've been around my family too, as opposed to being always on the road. And I'm out in the desert, which I love, Desert Hot Springs. So it's been cool. I had this book coming out. You've got the beautiful backdrop for my book, Win or Die, Leadership Secrets from Game of Thrones. And after that came out, the writing of it, which was demanding but really rewarding, the promotion of it last year, when all of this kind of kicked in, I thought back to, you know, I often find my mentors in musicians, writers and musicians, right? And my wife had me sort of going through a lot of the books that are stacked around this house and trying to pack them up and get a lot of them out of here because we just have so many. And I pulled this Willie Nelson biography, and I thought, God, you know, can't believe I haven't written a poem about Willie Nelson. So I started writing, I don't quite know why, I started writing sonnets based on Willie Nelson and his life. And this one is about Charley Pride. So really, as far as I know, the first big successful commercial African-American country singer who broke through, or with a little help from Willie in the 70s. So I'll try that poem first. It's called Charley Pride.
All right.
Charley's first night was in Dallas. Pride joined the Willie Nelson package tour. Marty Stewart told Willie, hire him. To ride with the boys in the package tour, Pride had worked for change. Still, you're hiring a black country singer. Crash asked Willie, don't you worry about taking him into Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, all those places? Redneck rooms aren't going to be happy on non-Austin, Tejas turf for country Charlie from Mississippi. But Will liked the man's music. Piss folks off? I don't know, Shotgun said. Let's go see. Charlie at the mic. Don't let this permanent tan fool you. Tough work to win that crowd, but Pride was strong and good. The South was his home too. Post-show on stage, the crowd applauding, Willie laid a kiss on Charlie's mouth. So that was Charlie.
Wow. And Charley Pride, we were talking about a little bit earlier. He was the guy who did Kiss an Angel Good Morning. Kiss an Angel Good Morning. And that, if it's so cool that your iPhone case matches Charley Pride's blazer.
Yeah, I've got a different iPhone case for every 70s song I pull up on. Something special that iPhone kind of, something they created for me. But yeah.
So that's a level of fame I have yet to attain. But good on you. If it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Thank you. You'll get there. Should I jump? I've got another country poem if you want to hear.
Absolutely.
I had a poem just come out a couple weeks ago. I received my copy in the mail. It's out of Oklahoma. There's a press called the Red Dirt Press, and they published a collection of my poetry last year. And they come out with a journal called the Red Dirt Forum, and it's a music issue. And this poem is about it's called The Politics of Toby Keith. And I'll give a little bit of context, although I referenced this in the poem, but about 16 years ago, a good buddy of mine, I was living in Burbank, he was in Toluca Lake, and we were often driving around in his Ford truck and talking, and we'd been roommates some years back in Hollywood. He's an actor, Max Martini. And when we were roommates, we both liked country music, and we both had completely different tastes. So I was always playing the Outlaws, the Whalens, the Willies, the Johnny Cash. He was playing sort of more contemporary stuff, Alan Jackson, a couple other names that I should think of, they're not coming to mind.
Now, Bruce, is Max, you were talking earlier about your wife, Sherelle, who's from Saskatchewan, who's more into 80s country. Is he more along her level of fandom?
I would say even my wife Sherelle can hear a fragment of a tune pop up on the radio and tell you which 80s country performer, it amazes me, right? I think because in the 80s I was listening more to punk and that kind of stuff, but metal, I guess. Although we did bond over metal, that's another story. Okay. Max, it was more the 90s, or that 90s country. And so we're driving in the truck and this song's playing and I go, oh, dude, I like, who's that? And he starts laughing. Now you got to remember, this is like not that long right after 9/11. And Toby Keith was a very kind of strong proponent of a military response. And our country was not as polarized then as it is certainly right now, but there was some of that going on. And he goes, oh, that's Toby Keith. And I said, oh, I made some disparaging comment like, yeah, conservative, I like that guy, blah, blah, blah. And about the fifth time I was in the truck with Max and I said, hey, who's this guy? He started laughing. He goes, dude, you say it every time. It's Toby Keith. He goes, admit it. You love Toby Keith. And I was like, that can't be possible. But then I went, you know what? I think he might have a point. So then I went home and to Monrovia, where we were living, Sherelle and I were living with our brand new little baby boy, Graham. And I said, you know what? I like this guy, Toby Keith. And it turned out she was a big fan of Toby Keith. So So yes, her 80s fandom had moved into the 90s. And then since then, I probably listened closely to everything Toby Keith has created. We went up 2 years ago, 4th of July, took the boys up to Vegas and saw him play. We saw him play some years before that in Saskatchewan at a country festival named, of all things, the Craven Festival. And anyway, so I'm a fan of his. So this poem is called The Politics of Toby Keith. Okay, let me get a sip of water. Ready?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Hold on to your boots. Part 1, Snowflakes and Nazis. You want to know the politics of Toby Keith? Isn't his support of the red Solo Cup enough wisdom for these divisive times? Shut up and sing was the insult dropped on the Dixie Chicks when their lead singer, Natalie, voiced displeasure at President Bush's choice to invade Iraq. Shut Up and Sing was the documentary that defended Natalie's choice to voice her opinion. But the opinion hurt the band's sales. They had sold more albums than any band of women, but that changed when their vision of Texas opposed the war started by a president identifying as Texan. My newsfeed today quoted Natalie. We would always wave the country flag when people would say it wasn't cool. Did the industry turn on them? Our republic claims the right of free speech, but doesn't claim the responsibility to listen, reflect, consider options. Is respect a snowflake word? A Nazi word? Are you one of us? Them? Debate threatens the confidence of opinion. Like assholes, we all have opinions. Sean Penn traveled to Iraq to meet the people the US planned to invade and kill. Did I lose you at Sean Penn? If we were attacked, man, said Penn, I'd be right next to Toby Keith in the trench. Penn's opinion suggests he believes in just military conflict. His opinion, followed by the action of visiting Iraq alone, suggests we not demonize people our weapons will eliminate. Those were simpler times. Did I lose you at Toby Keith? Part 2, easier than happiness. These days, we don't need to see an actor from Santa Monica or an Iraqi in Iraq on our PC to feel rage, to demonize. Our phones demonize. Our wristwatch devices, our TVs demonize. Screens point us to the enemy 24 hours a day. We rage. The Dixie Chicks betrayed America. I'm telling you, and I'm right, always. Finding the enemy doesn't take effort. It's easier than happiness. Hate is free, like sunshine, like the ocean, like most kisses. Fill up on judgments, fill up on hate. Don't worry about your own accountability, responsibility. Your day will happen soon. Did I lose you with my opinion about technology and hate? Every dog has its day, sang Toby Keith on his 2009 album, American Ride. In 2001, he rallied America to respond to the terrorism of 9/11 with a tune called Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, the Angry American, that Wikipedia says he wrote in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. He put a nation in motion with a 20-minute poem and a guitar. It's a stand-up off the floor song. It's a punchback song. It's a don't quit song. It's also a join the military song. I thought it was simplistic. Was sure watching young soldiers drunk in a Calabasas country bar singing it before shipping to war that it triggered blind followership. Toby believed it supported those men and women taking the biggest risk. I hated the music of Toby Keith. When I asked a friend, Max, about the great country music cranking in his F-150 in 2004 as we drove through Burbank. This guy, he laughed, dude, you ask me every time. It's Toby Keith. Face it, you love his music. Yeah, lucky dog gets a big old bed, stray dog gets the porch. One point of the song is that everyone has a moment, gets lucky, but don't expect luck to save you from bad choices, rude behavior. Toby Keith accepted the invitation to bring his band to Washington, D.C. for the president's inauguration, which had a huge crowd, or didn't. Toby Keith believed it was his responsibility to his country to respond to the president's request. He had played for Obama's Nobel Peace Prize in Norway. He took shit for it. Part 3, let's do-si-do. Did you hate it when I talked about President Trump or President Obama or myself in a Ford truck? You prefer Dodge, Chevy? It's easy for us to lose each other nowadays. I hate IPA beer. You should hate it with me. It's hot hate. I wear Levi's, not Wranglers. Wait, I wear Hudson's. I drink Coors. Our screens burn up our patience. Why not watch both news stations? Why not turn off the news and read this poem? Or build a garden, sings Willie's son Lucas and the promise of the real. President Trump stands for results. He has big balls, doesn't wait. I just grab him by the pony is apparently how they say it in Holland, discussing American politics and not wanting to offend their children. Our president grabs ponies. Very Western, but then I confuse Holland and Denmark. I'm American. I believe in the politics of Toby Keith. Keith has traveled many times to war zones to entertain the troops. At the Top Cat, the band slowed down for Merle. This is the song about luck and being responsible, no matter if you're a fat dog, skinny dog, hound dog, wonder dog, or chasing parked car dog. A woman gets grabbed physically, pulled away from her man by a drunk that tells her, I'm cutting in, let's do-si-do. Do you hate Merle Haggard? F you. But wait, don't leave this poem. I want you around when I tell you the best part of Toby's song. The man who gets pushed aside by the drunk, trying to punk him by cutting in on his two-stepping with his gal, ain't the hero. It's the woman that doubles up her fist and punches the drunk right square in the nose. It's the woman. She's the hero. The man in the song takes pride in having a woman who demands respect and acts with courage. Fulfill your responsibilities, treat people with respect, live with courage, and punch if you're grabbed by a man without consent. If you want that one moment in the sunshine when your ducks line up in a row, act right. That, I tell my sons, is the politics of Toby Keith. My oldest boy nods, thinking it over. I park the vehicle. My youngest son still humming the tune. Oh, one other thing I remind them. Don't smoke weed with Willie. That's how I spend my free time in a pandemic.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to some Toby Keith now.
Hey, you won't be. You'll have to like it. I'm telling you. I've never read that poem before. That I mean, out loud, you know, to a white light and to a image of one of my close friends. That was cool.
That was fantastic. That I only know Toby Keith as a country singer. I know nothing about him. I was going to ask you about what you all thought of the Dixie Chicks and Natalie Maines saying what she did and how that reverberated around your friend group.
Yeah, it was interesting. First of all, I have no idea how Toby Keith feels about this. I mean, if you were ever to see this poem, he might say I'm just totally full of shit. But I'd like to think that he would understand where I'm coming from. Sherelle and I are big fans of the Dixie Chicks, and particularly when that album came out. And one of Max's friends was, we had a connection through Max, and we got to see them play. I want to say it was Staples Center, and it was a great show. But I remember I was hiking with Max the day after she said that, and I remember thinking, even at that point, I mean, now it would even be more dramatic probably, but at that point I remember thinking, oh, this is going to have a lot of repercussions, just because people were so willing to judge them, which I don't understand. And I'm drawing a blank, but there was someone else that stepped up at that time. It was Merle Haggard. I was just reading this the other day. Merle Haggard stepped up and defended them at the time and said, look, I don't even know them, but they don't deserve to be taking so much abuse for sharing their opinion, which is really what is supposed to be one of the kind of core principles of being American. You share your opinion without everyone attacking each other. But
That's great that Merle Haggard stepped up.
I was impressed when I saw that.
I want to ask you, you talked about the Highwaymen, and there's that group of outlaw country people with Johnny and Willie and Chris Christopherson too.
Yeah.
And was it Waylon Jennings or Merle Haggard who was?
It was Waylon Jennings. That's my next Willie poem is going to be on the Highwaymen. I actually saw them. It was probably 94, something like that. And I was living in New York, and a buddy of mine who was from Nashville, but, a real rock and roll type guy, he came to me and said, oh, is there any chance you'd want to go to Central Park and see the Highwaymen? Because I have tickets, and I know you probably don't think it's cool. I'm like, dude, I think that's so cool. And we went and saw him in Central Park, which was pretty neat.
So, the actual song, The Highwaymen, Willie has the cool opening line about being an actual highwayman.
Yeah.
And then the other two guys, one's a dam builder and one's a sailor.
Yeah.
And then
who's the fourth guy?
We don't know Johnny Cash, but what do you think he thought when he got that set of lyrics that said, I drive a starship? Do you think he liked it?
Oh, he was that guy, right? That is such a good question. Well, it's interesting. In my obsessive enjoyment at reading about these guys, I was just reading something about how Willie and Waylon did like a Procol Harum song. I would know it, but because I knew the title, I just can't think of it at the moment. And Willie said, hey, Walker, can you guys be a little quieter? Thanks, man. Willie said, we had no idea what the song was about. Like, there was no way you could make sense of this song, but it was just so catchy. And then he goes, I guess we sold enough copies that it must have worked. So sometimes you don't even need to know what you're talking about. But Johnny Cash, Did he connect with being a star, man?
Yeah.
I want to say yes. I want to say, he's a very spiritual guy. And he probably, that idea of going off in space as a kind of a frontier, not to quote Star Trek, but I mean I would think so. What do you think?
Well, of the country guys, there are those who have a full style iconography, and fate was on Johnny Cash's side because he always looked good, and there were the glitter cowboys and people like that. But I'm trying to picture the outfit Johnny Cash would have worn at the helm of that starship.
At the helm of the starship. Well, which brings up another thing. Speaking of that, I have a meowing cat here. Should I let the cat out, or is it?
No, it adds to the ambiance.
He's very authentic in his meowing. Apparently, when they were filming the first Star Wars, the one that we now call A New Hope, in the mid-'70s, Ford was given he was supposed to wear, and it had been designed with, like, I don't think it had a really high neck, and I think it had like ribbons and bows, and it was supposed to look, I think, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of almost something like kind of romantic pirate-ish, right? And he just said, I'm just not wearing that. I'm going to wear this, like this, whatever was simple muslin shirt and a big leather belt or something, right? So my thinking is that if Johnny Cash didn't like the Starman uniform that had been created by the Star Planetary Alliance that was sending him out, he would have just pulled some black stuff off the rack and he would have looked badass. That's what I think.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now,
and by the way, we could talk about this for hours because these are the kind of questions that matter.
Thank you. I agree. I agree. You know, I wasn't being particularly flip when I said that. I kind of enjoy certain opportunities that have been afforded to us by this pandemic. There's another person named Britta Kay who's on the same bill as you tonight, who, when I asked her about what she was doing during the plague, she said, well, you know, I had all these plans, but when it became clear that I had to stay home, I made the most of staying home, and I haven't really regretted it. And, you know, if we were on the stage of the Hoot, and I'm sure we'd find plenty of wonderful things to do if we were on the stage, but we wouldn't have had this time to talk about Captain Johnny Cash.
Star Captain?
Yeah, we wouldn't have had, we would, yeah. You know, people would have been heading down to coffee hour. I do love
that church facility. It's phenomenal. Do you own it yet, or is that in the way? No. I think if my resources were to magnify much more than they're currently at, and I could somehow be a part of you purchasing that, I would like to make that happen.
Oh, I think the Unitarians actually own that building. So there's no mustache twirling landlord. So they own it, which is nice.
So you own it spiritually as a part of their kind of journey, the journey you're all on together.
Right. Now, whenever I think of making a segue, I think of what Hannibal Lecter said in The Silence of the Lambs when he referred to segues as ham-handed. However, your final piece tonight has a great cover.
Thank you. I'm going to read, last year I cannot tell you how fortunate I felt about this, but I had written a lot of poetry early in my life and through the years, and I kept it thinking, well, someday maybe I'll find the right way or venue for it to be published. And then I was contacted by someone that I had studied poetry with years ago, and she had the small press in Oklahoma. And this is the book, Buena Suerte in Red Glitter. My good friend in New York and Brooklyn, Mark Shaw, gave me the cover photo, which he had taken. And in fact, the photo of me on the back was one he took in, I think, 1998 or 99. And he helped me work on it. And Amy Wilson, who runs the press, helped me. So it was a very positive experience. And I'm going to read a poem called Mudflap Girl. If I had my old Zippo lighter, I would hold it up and it would have the Mudflap Girl on it. So just imagine.
Okay.
Mudflap Girl, you've seen her against her black curtain backdrop. She and her sister, silver and shiny, roar past on the interstate, bounce behind the gasoline truck with the brilliant red warning, or maybe the yellow and black biohazard. In Brooklyn, there's an ice cream step van covered completely, a friend told me, with you. Oh, Mudflap Girl. You're so much more than a rebel flag, an eagle, the letters NRA. You're on my Zippo and you're in my heart. You go back in time with me. You teach me and save me. I've met you in so many disguises, behind the masks of women with names and wallets and different driver's licenses, phone numbers scribbled on scraps of bar napkin before something falters and there is hurt and loneliness. And only you, silver outline that became flesh and warm and sang sentences then faded for one reason or another. Let me smoke another cigarette. Let me drink another whiskey. Let me drive nowhere fast. Let me run my fingers around your hourglass hips, the black curtain your silver legs sculpt as you begin to rise. Icon of slender wrist and ankle, move to me, but not like a stripper. I'm out of dollars. Barbarella of exhaust pipes and road tar and tasteless fried chicken, I wouldn't feed a starving cat. Baby, I don't care and I forgive you and I do really love you when the red lights of the highway patrol surge past in the fast lane, siren whining, and I sip my dead coffee and the dashboard glimmers and the odometer counts each mile like it matters. When the bartender fills my glass with flames of bourbon and screaming ice, you are there beside my cigarettes, looking good. Women lean forward, cup fingers around your red flame, give thanks with their eyes, smile when they catch sight of you. No, I refuse to believe your body is a patriarchal lie, marketed for profit. Your long hair, parted mouth, and up-thrust breasts are more than pornography, more than the imposition of an unfair and dangerous standard of femininity. I know this because I've been with you, have stood beside a white bed, struggled out of my Levi's, and watched as you pounced onto your knees, then bounced once on the mattress like a little girl waiting for a story. I've heard you plead, come on, hurry, and I have crawled to you like a man. Mudflap Girl. Based on a Zippo lighter.
Crawled to you like a man.
Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful, evocative images, Bruce. Bruce,
I feel like I need to tie this back into Johnny Cash and being a star man. So I don't quite know where to go. But if you have a segue, let's.
Well, I imagine on, you know, when I read Cash, Johnny Cash's autobiography, I got the sense that he had really lived a life. There are a lot of things that he didn't write about since he had gotten past the pills and the alcohol and he was safely ensconced with June. But I imagine that on that starship, there would be twin Mudflap Girls by the Thrusters.
That means a lot to me. I like that.
Bruce,
that sounds right to me and to Johnny, I think.
How many, what way is best for people to read the Bruce Craven canon?
Well, I mean, as I think you mentioned at the beginning, I work at Columbia Business School and I do a lot of work in leadership, and my website is cravenleadership.com. So my books are on there. I'm on the other social media, but I think probably Craven Leadership's the best way to sort of see what I do. And as you mentioned, there was a novel on a Film Fast Sofa. The novel is, you can track down for 50 cents on, somehow and get it delivered to you. But the film is on iTunes. Yeah. And the book, Win or Die, Leadership Secrets from Game of Thrones, is all over the place. It's being published in Serbia, Turkey, Russia. I feel like there's another country in there. And I did the audio on that. So if people like audio or if they are on Audible, I recorded 18 hours of that.
What was that experience like, doing the audio for your book?
Well, I mean, the short answer is it was really positive. I had wondered, because I knew they were going to do an audio, and I wondered whether they're going to ask me to be involved, and then they did. Is there any way you'd be interested? And I said, well, I'd love to do this. Because I'm out in the desert, it wasn't like there was no normal way that was handled by a publisher in New York. And they tracked down a guy that records musicians here. And I think it was roughly 3 or 4 hour days, of me reading through this, fairly substantial book. And it was interesting because what I found myself starting to do was actually edit as I was reading, right? So I'd be reading and I'd think that line, because, if you like writing, that's what you're always wanting to do. And at a certain point, I thought, dude, you cannot start trying to edit that. You just need to read it. Just knock it out and read it. And it was very positive. I love the guy that it was recording me. We were working on it. And the final day, I brought in my youngest son, who was just about to turn 10 then. And he sat in there, played a little piano for the producer. And I made it all the way. It was Super Bowl Sunday, the last time I think the Patriots won. And I made it all the way to the final page. It's like it's happening now. I made it to the final page and I just lost my voice. I mean, it was literally the final page, and I couldn't even fake it. I was guzzling water. I was like, sucking down different, lifesavers and lozenges. And finally the guy laughed and said, just go sit outside for a while. And then I came back in and practically crawled through the final page. And then,
like a man.
Like a man, exactly. I went to a Super Bowl party and drank some beers and blah, blah, blah. But no, it was a cool thing to be a part of. I was glad I had a chance to do it.
That's really cool. Well, listen, Bruce, I have a couple of extra Zoom calls that I have to do tonight for your compatriots on the evening. But it's delightful talking with you, and you've given me many things to think about, including Toby Keith.
Well, I will have to talk about that more later and hear what you think. And as always, Marty, thanks for inviting me to be part of the Hoot. It's a real honor. I'm excited and just really pleased to be here.
All right, my friend. I will talk with you again soon, and my fond regards to your family and pets.
See you.
Bye.